right? You're supposed to get up at 6, right? And you wake up. You're nervous. Are you going to ever get back to sleep again? Should you get up and just get going? You know, you try, but you can't get there. Why is it so hard?
Well, first of all, one of the things people have to remember is insomnia can actually be habit forming. I've got patients who tell me, I wake up every single night at 2:37 on the dot. You know, they look over at the clock and they're like, yep, there it is. And they know what's going on. And what we really have to impress upon people here is they have to set their environment and their body up for a good night's sleep.
All right, so we got 3 tips if you wake up at 2 in the morning. The first is hide your clock, which that one I agree with so strongly. Keep some water or a snack at the bedside, and then do a muscle relaxation exercise. So walk us through those 3.
So first of all, the clock. You know, I wish that alarm clocks would just go blank in the middle of the night, because what good does it do to learn what time it is? You know, because then what happens is you start doing mental math saying, oh gosh, I've only got 2 hours left or 1 hour left. Yeah, everybody in the head's shaking their head, right? They're like, oh yeah, exactly. and that's what happens. And all that does is provoke anxiety. That's not what we want to be doing when we're trying to get back to sleep. Another big thing that people may do is wake up and they may be parched or even hungry. So what I oftentimes suggest is a glass of water and maybe just a few crackers or something like that beside the bed. Right. To settle down that hunger, you know, quench that thirst. Because if you get up and get out of bed, all this autonomic arousal occurs. You open up the refrigerator, you know, that light's almost blinding, right, in the middle of the night, and it's not really particularly good for sleep. The other thing I talked about, people, is progressive muscle relaxation.
This is a good idea.
It's a great technique. It's been around for 60, 70, 80 years. And what you do is you tense muscle groups as hard as you can for 5 to 8 seconds, and then you relax them. And you start from the top of your head and move all the way down to the tip of your toes. Most of my patients are out cold by the time they hit their tummy.
Yeah, it's a great relaxation technique. All right, so it's 4 a.m.
Okay.
Right? So it's a little bit later, you're wide awake, you don't have that much more time to sleep. We have to get up because again, the alarm is set for 6, and you say count backwards by 3s.
So actually it's count backwards from 300 by 3s. Okay, so everybody try that for a second. I know nobody told you there's going to be a math quiz today, right? Well, what's interesting here is it takes so much mental, you know, goings on to be able to subtract. You can't think of anything else, and it's so doggone boring. Boom, you're out like a light.
Yeah, it's tedious. All right, now it's 5 a.m.
Okay.
Now remember, the average wake-up time in America is 5:47 a.m. Believe it or not. So if your average time is only 45 minutes away from where you've just woken up, the real challenge to all of us is it worth trying to go back to bed again, or is it better and smarter to get up, get through coffee, get going in life?
I actually recommend to my patients, if they've got any more than about 35 minutes of sleep, they can go back to sleep. But if they don't have more than 35 minutes, go ahead and get up. And here's why. It takes your body between 35 and 45 minutes to fall back into deep sleep, and then it's really hard to get up once that alarm rings.
Yeah, you're in a coma state. So conventional wisdom, again, in this setting is to go ahead and get some caffeine, and maybe get your first caffeine when you first get up in the morning, but then cut out caffeine when you're within 6 hours of going to sleep again. That's what I've always been saying on the show. You actually argue that it should be earlier, that at 2:30 in the afternoon,
I do.
You should be sort of tapering off.
Well, and there's a couple of reasons why. So number one, the half-life of caffeine can be anywhere between 8 and 10 hours. So when you start dialing back based on a 10:30 bedtime, that kind of gets closer to about 2:30. So that's one thing to consider. I also tell people to do something called caffeine fading across the day, where you take your highest caffeinated beverage and you drink it early in the morning, and then you slowly move to lesser and lesser caffeinated beverages. And by 2:30, you really should be drinking water.
So 3 o'clock in the afternoon, for a lot of us, is a time where we have a little bit of a slump.
Yep.
And I guess we can go outside and play if we have the ability to do that. But what are the things we should be doing at 3 if it's not possible to take caffeine? Because it violates your rule of 2:30.
Absolutely.
The Bruce rule.
The Bruce rule. So one of the things that we know is that there is a core body temperature dip between 1 and 3 in the afternoon. And that's actually a signal to the brain to start to release melatonin. Remember, that's the key that starts the engine for sleep. So it's not that big pasta lunch that you may have had that's making you tired. So what we want to do is we want to do something to make sure that that melatonin isn't kind of sneaking out in the middle of the day. Sunlight turns out to be one of the best things to thwart melatonin, because remember, it's called the vampire hormone, because it really has a tendency more to come out in the evenings. So get outside. If you can go for a brisk walk for even just 10 minutes, that's going to be great. But getting outside and getting that sunlight is going to be a lot better than recaffeinating.
All right, so it's 7 p.m. You've gotten past your body temperature dip. You got your exercise. You got going again. And now you've got the challenge, which is you're out with friends and you want to have a drink. And I've always known that folks who drink late in the evening, after 7, for example, at dinner time, are more likely to have problems with sleeping. But that seems a little bit counterintuitive, right? Because for most folks, they can have a drink, I'll relax. And it's interesting that that's not the case. And why is that?
Well, here's what's interesting is it has to do with the amount of alcohol. 1 glass of wine with dinner, even 1.5 glasses, it's probably fine. Yes, alcohol will make you sleepy, but the more alcohol you drink, the more it actually affects your sleep, keeping you out of the deep stages of sleep. And then once you metabolize that alcohol, specifically the sugar that's in it, it wakes you up. And because alcohol is a diuretic, you got to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. You guys taking notes? I think we just killed the alcohol business late in the evening.
You can still have 1 glass.
Yeah.
You can still enjoy your dinner.
All right. So it's 10 p.m. and that's of course when the average person has to go to sleep in order to get the 7.5 hours we know you need before your 5:47 a.m. wake up call. So what are the strategies that we ought to be adopting so that we can get to sleep by 10:30, which is again what we're arguing for. And there are 3 steps that Dr. Bruce talks about. Just outline it for everybody. If you're watching TV or a computer, click it off. Time to shut down. Again, at 10 o'clock, half an hour before bedtime. You want to use the bathroom. And finally, let's hope you guys figure that one out. And finally, this issue of a night light. Doesn't matter what color the light is. I've heard blue lights are better.
Blue lights tend to be better, generally speaking, but as long as it's pretty low wattage, you're probably okay.
Dr. Bruce, as always, thank you very, very much. All these tips that you need to build a better sleep challenge are on DrOz.com. We'll be right back.